All right. Good morning to everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the February 2021 meeting of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'll ask LCTCS Board Services Coordinator, Ms. Sarah Kleinpeter, to review a few points, given that we are holding a virtual meeting of the board and live streaming to
batteries.
Good. Ms. Kleinpeter?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. As a reminder, the meeting is being live streamed online, and we ask that you please be mindful of that. Those who are joining by remote access are asked to keep yourselves on mute throughout the meeting and using the raise hand feature if you have a comment or question. When recognized to speak, unmute, give yourself a few seconds before you make your comments, and mute yourself when you're done to avoid background noise during the remainder of the meeting. If you have any trouble with your technology at any point, please call or text me, and you have my number. If you may view the board items via the links posted on the LCTCS website. We will conduct a roll call vote at the start of the meeting, and each necessary motion will require a roll call vote for approval. Members, please state your name when you make a motion. Motions must be made by sound and not gesture. Public comments may be made during today's meeting via the open conference call line at 1-877-810-9415. Access code 6499-147#. That information is also in the notice of meetings posted on the LCTCS website, www.lctcs.edu. Any public comments received during the meeting will be read by the board secretary or a designee. All public comments must include an agenda item number, a name, and a brief statement. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per comment. And Mr. Chairman, I return the floor to you.
All righty, thank you, ma'am. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the February 10th, 2021 meeting of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Salath, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please, sir? Can't hear you.
I was trying to unmute me. If you would, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry, Paul, I couldn't get to the mute button fast enough.
I understand. Ms. Sarah, thank you, sir. Ms. Sarah, would you do a roll call, please?
I'd be happy to. Supervisor Price.
I'm here.
Supervisor Mount.
Present.
Supervisor Jackson.
Present.
Supervisor Bradford.
Present.
Supervisor Carter.
Present.
Supervisor Roman Hardy.
Present.
Supervisor Tim Hardy is absent. Supervisor Erica McConduit will be here in just a moment. She is having technical difficulties. Supervisor Mickey Murphy.
Here.
Supervisor Joe Potts. Mr. Potts, if you click on the red speaker and unmute yourself. And I'm certain he will be back.
Oh, goodness.
Supervisor Salath.
Here.
Supervisor Smith.
Here.
Supervisor Spears.
Here.
Supervisor Spawn is not here yet, but does plan on joining us when his schedule allows. Supervisor Toops is absent. Supervisor Mitchell is absent. Supervisor Turner is absent. Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum of the board present.
All righty. Thank you very much. I'm sure Supervisor Potts will be back with us shortly. On point of the chair's privilege, I ask that the following two items, D and E, be taken in succession and one vote conducted for those items once the review concludes. Is there any objection to that from anyone? Good, thank you. Members, you have received the agenda, and in accordance with the Louisiana Revised Statute 42-17-1, as presiding officer, I have determined that the matters on this agenda are considered critical or time sensitive and should not be delayed. A roll call vote of those in attendance will be taken at the conclusion of the review of items D and E. That would be the approval of the meeting agenda and the approval of the meeting minutes from December 9th, 2020. Sarah, am I doing this right?
Yes, sir. If you would also read the statement about the December 9th meeting, which is item E.
Yes, ma'am. On point of the chair's privilege, I want to note that the minutes as presented from the December 9th meeting reflect a technical correction as related to item H7 from the December meeting. The correction does not impact the purpose of the action and updates correct language in the item. Is there any objection to this? Hearing none, I would request a motion to approve the agenda and the consideration of the matters on it on item B, and to approve the December 9, 2020 meeting minutes as presented in item E.
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Mount and a second by Ms. Bradford. And we will conduct a roll call vote.
Okay.
Supervisor Price,
Yes.
Supervisor Mount,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Hardy,
Yes.
Supervisor McConduit. Have you been able to join us yet? Not yet. Oh, she is here. Supervisor Murphy,
Yes.
Supervisor
sorry.
McConduit.
I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm here.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll note on the record that you are here and are present for this vote. Right now, we're taking action on items D and E. The approval of those items. And do you want to participate in that vote, or would you like to participate in the next vote?
I'll wait.
Okay, perfect. Supervisor Murphy did approve the motion. Supervisor Potts, are you back with us? Yes. Fantastic.
There you go. Now you can talk.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you all. I'm present. Sorry about that.
Yes, sir. We have you present, and we're working on the approval of items D and E. Do you vote in the affirmative to pass?
I have that. Please proceed. I
Fantastic.
apologize.
No problem. Supervisor Salah?
Yes, but something's happened to my video.
Yes, sir. We'll be sure to fix it for you in just
You've
1
knocked
second.
me off.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Spears?
Yes.
Supervisor Spawn is not here with us yet. Mr. Chairman, items D and E have been approved, and there was an outcome of ensuring that 2/3 of those present voted affirmatively to adopt the agenda and consider the items on it.
Good deal. Thank y'all. That was fun. It has now come to the point for the chair of the board report. I will promise I'll keep my remarks short and sweet. Welcome to 2021. I mean, it's got to be better in 2020. So at least we got something to look forward to. I think things are going to turn around, and maybe we can get a little normal going back again, and that'll be helpful. The only really thing I want to mention is I've been virtually to a few of the advocacy meetings, not as many as I wanted to, but got to a couple of them, and got to the one at Louisiana Delta last Friday. And they're all been well attended, and the one at Delta was very well attended, both virtually and in person. And I just want to state for the record that y'all should be very proud of your system president. He has done an outstanding job of letting the legislators know where things are and how things are. And he's made some, I'm sure he will talk about it later, so I won't steal his thunder, I guess you could say, but he's done a great job of presenting it, items that are important to our system to the legislators, and I commend him for his efforts. It's a kind of a grueling task, but at the same time, it's kind of like Groundhog Day also, but it's he gives them very good information and very well organized, and I just really am proud of how he handles it. So Monty, I just wanted to be sure that was stated for the record. I know that Tim is somewhere in virtual world at a national summit for the ACCT National Legislative Summit. So we're hoping to hear good things from him. And I think that's all I've got. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sullivan for his report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the kind words around our advocacy efforts. And I'll certainly provide you with an update as we get a little bit further into our update President's report this morning. Before we talk about advocacy, though, we have some guests that are joining us, and these are folks who recognize the value of the mission of our community and technical colleges, and have made investments of time, energy, and resources to ensure that our mission is able to be met. We have with us today our newest chancellor to the group, Dr. Scott Rule. I'd like to turn it over at this point to Dr. Rule for introductions and a bit of a background on both of these organizations. Dr. Rule.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Just want to test these. It's still a new system for me. It is actually my honor to introduce two companies who know what it means to be a great corporate citizen and a participant, a supporter of our communities, our colleges, our state. And I didn't know how to choose one over the other because both of them have donated generously for us just recently. But I'm going to go with the standby of alphabetical order, which is kind of ironic since both of them are at the very beginning of the alphabet. But it's my privilege to announce Atmos Energy, introduce Ann Hayward, the manager of PR. Atmos Energy is the largest fully regulated natural gas company in the nation. Atmos has a long history of working with and supporting our communities here in Louisiana, in Ouachita Parish. Matter of fact, Ann, I was reading some other things that happened before I got here, where she showed up in 2019 to one of our libraries, the Carver Library in Ouachita Parish. They were celebrating their 70th year anniversary. And Ann shows up with laptops in hand to donate to the library. That's the type of personal touch that Atmos has, reaching out, providing resources to our community. So it's wonderful when that type of thing happens. I've also seen things where Atmos shows up and donates $2,500 to the West Monroe Fire Department for needed safety equipment beyond what we all have experienced with safety equipment. We're talking about before COVID. That was what was on the mind for Atmos. So Atmos is always looking for ways to celebrate and help and assist. And it's no different celebrating and helping Louisiana Delta Community College with the most recent $15,000 donation to help us out with our programs, with the scholarship program, the Endowed Scholarship, where we can leverage that money and double it basically through the Board of Regents, where more students can benefit from those dollars. So I'm very, very pleased to introduce Ann Hayward, who is also, by the way, on our foundation board, and she's been serving as the president for the past 3 years. So right now I want to turn it over to Ms. Hayward.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rule. Wow, you've done your research. I think you could do PR for Atmos Energy. Thank you. As part of our initiative, Fueling Safe and Thriving Communities, Atmos Energy is so happy to be able to provide this. We appreciate everything that all the colleges are doing throughout the state of Louisiana, especially during these times where you're also retraining folks that, because of COVID or maybe other reasons, have lost jobs or need retraining, and then of course all the great programs that you have going there too. So we are just extremely excited about all the good things that are going on, and we welcome you to the Monroe area also. And we will continue to be a part of your great endeavors. And so thank you so much for those kind words. And I look forward to seeing you in person one of these days. Thank you so much.
I look forward to that as well. Thank you, Ann. I'm sorry we missed each other at the board meeting just recently, so we'll connect.
We definitely will. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, now it's more of my privilege and honor to introduce our other guest and supporter of Louisiana Delta and all of Louisiana. As a matter of fact, they've got multiple states just like Atmos does. Mr. Greg Robinson, we have not met either, but he is the vice president and district manager for Super One Foods in all of Louisiana. And we all know the Brookshire name, but I also encourage you to learn the history of the company. They are truly dedicated to customer service, community improvement. Matter of fact, I received a letter, which was surprising and welcoming and really a treat from Brad Brookshire as evidence how connected and concerned they are. And I received that letter welcoming me to Louisiana Delta Community College. And he also included a copy of a new book, a newly released book called From Cotton Picker to Storekeeper. It's the history of Brookshire's. And I found the expression in that book when I read through it, jump over the counter customer service. Now, doesn't that create a great visual on what customer service is all about? I was just impressed by that one phrase. I had not heard that before, but that's exactly what I'm seeing from Brookshire's and that wonderful welcoming letter that I received from them. And then I find out that they have donated generously to Louisiana Delta. And then I found out again, I keep finding more and more ways that Brookshire's and Super One Foods have been sponsoring and helping us out. That it's not just Louisiana Delta, but a number of our community colleges here in the state. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Mr. Greg Robinson, again, VP and District Manager for Super One Foods.
Thank you, Dr. Rule. That jump over the counter service actually comes from Brad's granddad, who was the founder of our company. When he started the first self-service grocery store in Tyler, Texas, and people would come in and ask for things, he was a tall gentleman and would actually put his hands on the counter and vault over to go help people.
Right.
We kept that as part of our culture and hope to keep it for many years to come. Hope we deliver on that. We realize these have been difficult times for the colleges and universities as well as the students. And we like to help be part of the solution and give back where we can. As a result, we've donated more than $1 million to fund just over 40 endowed scholarships at colleges and universities in our trade areas, which include Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. 16 of those scholarships are in Louisiana at a cost of a little more than $350,000. We're very proud to be associated with these institutions. I've spent 28 of my 35 years in Louisiana, so I love to be a part of the community and be able to give back through our company as well. And we hope to continue to help the universities and the students. We're also proud to be part of the business community and look forward to continuing that relationship. That's what makes it possible for us to be able to create and give donations like this. We've worked hard to gain the trust of Louisiana customers and look forward to doing that in the future and continue that relationship with our customers, with this board, and with the state of Louisiana. So thank you for allowing us to participate.
Very good. Thank you, Ann and Greg. It's because of companies like yours and because of the support both of time, of talents, and of resources that we're able to deliver on the mission. Atmos has been a long time friend to our colleges, and certainly, Ann, thank you for your service at Louisiana Delta. Greg, I have been familiar with Brookshire's for a number of years, and I still believe Brookshire's Grocery is one of the best American business stories to be told. And one of the things that I'll point out, and I hope I'm not overstating this, Greg, but Brookshire's is an organization with a broad footprint and doesn't owe a single penny on a single bit of real estate. This is an organization that has gone out and built in a way that is sustainable long-term, an organization that has been really good to its employees over the years. I know that firsthand because one of my wife's first jobs when we were first married was with Brookshire's Grocery. And I know the company well and appreciate all the support that you provide to your employees, and certainly appreciate the work that you are doing with our colleges and the contribution. So thank you to Ann and to Greg for being with us today, and thank you for the continued relationship. With that, Mr. Chairman, we will turn to a second group of partners that we've had the opportunity to work with a number of different ways. And I'd like to turn to Mr. Quentin Taylor and ask Quentin, if he will, to give us an introduction of the next group of partners and to talk a little bit about the impact that relationship has had for our students as well as for our colleges. Quentin?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, members of the board. Good to be with you. And Supervisor Mount, I second your notion about we need to all get together sooner rather than later and just see each other and love on each other and you know, just be together, right? Like we normally are. One of our previous presenters just touched on it, how challenging COVID has been and a lot of the barriers that it has put in place. And what we have found within our system in particular, and it's not exclusive to LCTCS, but all of higher ed, that our students, quite frankly, are having a very difficult time adjusting to this new normal, quote unquote. And so we're going to talk about our diversity, equity, and inclusion work in a little bit. But one of the recommendations that came from that group was around this notion of providing a more intensive and a more profound approach to how do we handle mental health among our students and, quite frankly, some of our employees. And out of the blue, on the day that I was having a DEI meeting, I received a call from one of our very good colleagues, Kathy Victorian from Healthy Blue, Louisiana, who I think this board knows quite well. Over the last 2 years, they have provided us over $150,000 worth of scholarships for students in the healthcare field. And so Kathy reached out, and I'm not going to steal her thunder, but I'm going to turn it over to her here in a second. And then she's going to turn it over to Ms. Shalina Davis, who is the CEO of the Louisiana Public Health Institute. And they're going to talk about this partnership that they actually brought to us, and I'm so grateful for it. And so Kathy, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, Dr. Sullivan, and to the Board of Supervisors. And Quentin, thank you so much for that that warm introduction, and the good kudos to Healthy Blue. Healthy Blue is an organization, we're a managed care organization, and we offer Medicaid expansion, and Louisiana Children's Health Insurance throughout the great state of Louisiana. However, in doing all of that, we know as a company, we do good as a company by doing good in the community. And that's when Louisiana Community Technical College System, as well as LPHI, come into play. We approached LCTCS a couple years ago in regards to scholarships. And it's a quote that sticks with me. And this quote was done by the wonderful Mr. Taylor. And I quote, "The success rate of the staggering of the 69 scholarships awarded, 63 have graduated. It was clear that these funds were critically important to help other students complete their programs of study. This is the most successful scholarship I've seen in my 8 years with LCTCS." Reading that quote and just knowing that what we have done impacted so many students on your beautiful campuses just empowers us to want to do more. And we do more by giving of our time, talent, as well as treasure, because we know in an organization, the money is one thing and the money is wonderful, but your time is just as important. That volunteering piece, that's a key piece to moving forward in any organization. And we often talk about what's happening now, the current situation that the world is in, the civil unrest. How do we approach that? How do we step into that space? And we know stepping into that space sometimes is not the most comfortable thing to do, but we also know stepping into that space, you need solid community partners. LCTCS is one of those partners, as well as LPHI. From a mental health standpoint, when we were talking about these trainings that we are doing with LPHI, two to be exact, one has already taken place with community partners, but another one was coming up, and we were trying to figure out who is that partner? Who is that partner that we can reach out to and that can take this program and spread it across their workplace? Well, Quentin came to mind, LCTCS came to mind, Tari came to mind. That's what came to mind when I started thinking about who it is that we need to talk to. So in conversing with Jamie, we came up with an idea, let's just reach out and see what's happening. And voila, talking to Quentin, he was like, this is just so perfect, on point. The timing is so on point because we're just talking about how to get individuals trained in the mental health space. And so I'm not going to steal Shalina's thunder. So we gave dollars to support this training. And so Selena's group is going to actually spearhead the training, but LCTCS is going to benefit from that training. And enough of my yapping, I'll turn it over to Shalina. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. Sullivan, to the Board of Supervisors. And I must give a shout out to two beautiful faces that I know oh so well. That is Tari Bradford, as well as Erica McConduit. Believe it or not, Tari taught me at Southern University. I know she looks like she's 12, but she taught me at Southern University, so she will forever be my professor. Shalina, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Dr. Sullivan, and to the Board of Directors, and thank you, Quentin and Kathy, for allowing me to share briefly. My colleague, Jamie Giepert, and I are here today to share a little bit more about this partnership we're doing with LCTCS and Healthy Blue, and giving your faculty, staff, and students the tools they need to address mental health challenges through mental health first aid program. I'm Shalina Davis. I'm the CEO of the Louisiana Public Health Institute. We're a statewide community-focused nonprofit organization headquartered here in New Orleans. However, we employ about 100 staff, many of whom work in each of the 9 Louisiana Department of Health regions on anywhere between 70 and 100 different projects, all aimed at ensuring that all Louisianans have fair and just opportunities to be healthy and well. I'm a Louisiana homegirl, born in Jefferson Parish, raised in St. Tammany Parish, and spent a great deal of my adult life in Orleans Parish. I'm a sister-in-law of a Baton Rouge Community College graduate, and a mental health is health and health equity champion. As we all have heard and seen and experienced, mental health challenges are growing in our community, among our residents, among our neighbors, our family members and friends, not just because of the pandemic, but also because of the social unrest. And also, as we heard earlier, we've had 3 major catastrophic hurricanes impact our community over the last year. And our mental health challenges among individuals in our communities have only been exacerbated. Many of us, I'm trained in public health and social work, but many of us in our community who are not trained in mental health have no idea what to do when we see someone struggling with a mental health condition or challenge. Just think about it. When we see someone grabbing their chest or fall down or sideswiped in a car, we immediately know to jump into action. We call 911, we may perform CPR. Oftentimes, though, when we see a family member or friend or neighbor or someone who appears to be a bit down or looks a bit off or appears disoriented or may be hearing things, a lot of times we don't know what to do. We'll walk away from this person, we'll be confused or scared, and sometimes we just ignore it, not because we don't care, but because we don't know what to do. So imagine if you knew the questions to ask someone or how to approach someone when they were down or was talking to themselves. Imagine if you knew where to refer them in your community. Well, this is what Mental Health First Aid provides. It's a public awareness tool. It's a training that individuals can receive to really help demystify mental health. And it really provides us the tools to help us feel comfortable, even if we're not a therapist or a counselor, to ask a question of our friends or our family members or our neighbor or that stranger to get them the help they need and to be able to connect them to the resources in the community. So I want to give a special thanks to Quentin at LCTCS, a special thanks to Healthy Blue for the sponsorship, Kathy and Karen and her team for sponsoring the upcoming training that we're doing. We have mental health first aid training scheduled for March 16th and 17th. To date, we have about 15 staff members who are registered from LCTCS. I'll just leave you with, in our state, we have less than 1% of people trained in mental health first aid. However, in the country, there's about 2.5 million people trained in our country. And so we're excited to be adding to that number. So if you know of anybody who is interested and want to learn more about this training opportunity, it's a great resource tool for every employer in our state. I know at our organization, most of our staff have now been trained in mental health first aid. So just wanted to offer that as a resource. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you to Kathy and Shalina. Look, and to Jamie, thank you for thinking of us in this kind of opportunity. Our faculty and staff and students face many, many challenges, and what you're offering can be a lifeline for many people. And we're very much thankful. Let me pause for a minute and ask if there are any questions from the board.
I just have one clarifying. First of all, hi, friend. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for the shout out. It's wonderful to see you. And always, Kathy is a stellar citizen and corporate citizen. She's always looking out for the community. So this does not surprise me. It is always consistent with who she is and certainly who Healthy Blue is. But Shalina, I have a question. Just quickly, you said it's open up for students as well, so students could actually access it. I'm just wondering then, and it may be partly after that answer, Quentin, how is it being publicized to everyone?
Yes, so, and I can see if Jamie and Kathy can ask that, but it should be open to anyone. We're offering the adult mental health first aid training, so I believe you have to be 18 years or older to take that training, but it's open to anyone who's 18 years or older on your campus. But I'll turn it over to Jamie to see about recruitment.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So for this first training with LCTS, we are focused on the personnel. So that includes HR personnel, counselors, security staff, and others. So there are a select group of 25 participants that we are targeting. But we have partnered with LCTS on a federal grant that we recently submitted. So we're hopeful that we will get that, and we'll hear later this summer with the goal of possibly recruiting and training up to 700 individuals across all LCTS campuses. And that would be open to students as well. So the adult training is available for students, but for this first round, we're focusing on the personnel.
Very good. Thank you again. Very much appreciate the work that is going on. And Shalina and Jamie, thank you for what you're doing. This is a space that we know in Louisiana we have particular challenges in, but particularly during this time. Thank you for the work that is going on. And Kathy, keep up the great work. You're doing splendid work on behalf of Healthy Blue, but I certainly appreciate the relationship with our colleges. So thank you to both of you, all three of you guys, for taking the time to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Continuing with the theme that Quentin brought up a few minutes ago, back during the summer, I guess it was probably June, July timeframe, Quentin, we made a decision as an organization that we would address the issues of social unrest that were going on around the country, and particularly right here in our own backyard in Louisiana. That we felt the need to be the organization that didn't just simply put out a statement, but the organization that took action. That ensured that the fabric of our organization addressed the issues of social that resulted in social unrest. When you think of it, our institutions collectively enroll and graduate more minority students than the rest of higher education combined. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that our institutions are places where people of color, where people from disadvantaged backgrounds feel comfortable and confident in being able to be educated, in being able to be skilled, and to accomplish the things in life that they've set out to accomplish. The work that has gone on since that in the creation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, I want to specifically call out a few individuals. Quentin Taylor has led that effort on behalf of the board office. Certainly, Supervisor McConduit, you have committed significant amounts of your own time to this effort, and we could not be more thankful for that work. A number of others that have been engaged, and I'm blown away by the work that this task force is doing that is fundamentally changing how we view diversity, equity, and inclusion within this organization. So with that, I want to turn it over to Quentin and ask that you give the board an update.
Absolutely, Dr. Sullivan. And again, so thank you for teeing it up for me. I mean, you said it perfectly. I think it's also important to note that while the tragedies of the summer and the subsequent protests, we were already looking into this issue, but we were looking at it primarily from an HR perspective. Who do we hire? How do we hire? How do we promote? How do we retain? Right? So we were looking at it from an HR perspective, and that work continues. And so as a result of the task force being created, we established 6 subcommittees. Sarah, can you pull that presentation up for me real quick? I've got 2 quick slides to kind of give you some insight on what has occurred up to this point. And I do want to let the board know that joining me today is Monica Morrison, who works over at River Parishes Community College. She serves on the task force, as well as Dr. Paul Donaldson from North Shore Technical Community College, also serves on the task force. And Dr. William Wainwright, Chancellor from North Shore, is also going to say a few words here. So what you see on the screen just breaks down the 6 subcommittees: community engagement, curriculum review, education and professional development, employee access and success, institutional infrastructure and culture, and student access and success. So over the last 5 or 6 months, the task force has met twice a month. And I mean, we have had really, really great discussions. We've had some really productive conversations, right? And I think that's good, because when we all get in a room from diverse backgrounds, cultures, races, genders, etc., I think it brings out the best in all of us. And it, quite frankly, it has challenged us more than we could have ever possibly imagined. And so these 6 subcommittees put together a list of recommendations. Those recommendations have been forwarded to our chancellors. Our chancellors are now looking through those lists of recommendations. I want to share with you just 5 of these recommendations that we believe are at the core of the task force and what we need to do from a DEI perspective. And then I'll turn it over to Monica, Dr. Donaldson, Dr. Wainwright, and then Supervisor McConduit will round out our comments today. Sarah, can you advance it for me? So again, really quickly, we're looking at analyzing student data through an equity lens so we can better understand who we're serving and who we're not serving well. One of the recommendations was to implement a strategic plan to increase enrollment and completion. It's one thing to enroll this population, but we've got to get them through and completed and then to work. So implement a plan to increase enrollment and completion of African American and Hispanic males and white males in rural communities. Implement programs to create a safer and more welcoming environment for all individuals, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, identity, or gender expression. That is a huge issue, not only for our students, quite frankly, but some of our personnel. I've received a number of calls, texts, and emails from individuals who don't feel safe and don't feel welcome on their campus because of the lifestyle that they're living. And so we're committed to trying to look at programs in that area, and then review all majors to ensure that issues of race and equity are embedded in the curriculum. But also we got to have these discussed in a healthy and culturally changing manner, similar to those discussions I talked about that we're having among the task force. And then this 5th one is also really important, is we're recommending that we participate, and we're going to do this regardless, in the Jobs for the Future consortium of states focused on equity issues and programs of value. And so with that, I will turn it over to Monica. So Monica Morrison from River Parishes can say a few words.
Good morning. Thank you, Quentin. I would just like to share, Dr. Sullivan and the board, as a newcomer to the Louisiana system, I want to say thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for challenging me to step out of my comfort zone. I'm probably a recent example of how seriously our system as a whole is taking this effort. My new role as Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Services also includes Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. And being a part of the task force and a part of the subcommittee for infrastructure and culture has been eye-opening for me. The task force has helped to centralize a lot of like-minded doers who are ready and remain ready to take up the work of DE&I. Even though many of us have recognized we actually do know what we don't know in this instance, but fortunately we have so many valuable resources and partners that we can tap into. And I'm excited about how we are working to push the needle forward and change cultures, not only at our local institutions, but as we do activities and trainings with our students and our staff, that we're actually changing the culture of our communities. And because this has been prioritized as a systemic effort, how we can impact that culture at the state level. And so that's very exciting to me. In my nearly 15 years of post-secondary experience, I've never been a part of an effort like this. And so it's my hope that as we continue to work together and share information and resources and keeping this DEI value and drive at the forefront of everybody's mind, that eventually we'll look something like a AT&T and T-Mobile coverage, that will be accessible everywhere, that will be stable, and that will continue growing DE&I and all those efforts that are inclusive of that. Thank you.
Dr. Donaldson?
Yeah, thank you, Quentin, and good morning, board and Dr. Sullivan. Quentin, thank you for inviting me to speak today and for your leadership, just like Monica said, in pushing this forward. A lot of times we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in response to things that happened like this past summer. And there's some pieces put together, and sometimes it's focused a little on talk and not as much on action. So, certainly wanted to thank Quentin for keeping us focused on action and impact of what our committee is doing and can do. And then also thank Dr. Sullivan and our chancellor here at North Shore, Dr. Wainwright, for their statements and their commitments to social justice last year. And again, the same thing, it's not just talk. You see those statements being put into action through this task force that's system-wide. And then also here locally at North Shore, we created a call to action task force, which was in direct response. So words matter and they're important, but action speaks much more loudly. So thank you to all of you and to the board for your commitment to this issue. So it's been interesting and rewarding to see the interplay between our local committee at North Shore and also the system office committee, and to see how both kind of inform each other. So North Shore, you may know, started out with the adoption of the HEADS Campus Climate Survey to try to get some data and not just go off of assumptions on how individuals see the environment here at North Shore, but get some data from a survey. And so we piloted that here at North Shore. We kind of took the lead on that. And then that's also something I know that's been picked up by the system office and is going out around the system as well. And then also we've benefited from system office efforts like the diversity dashboard that's been put together to help us kind of illuminate areas that we need to focus on internally as a college. So, both of those groups really are also focused on faculty participation. So I serve as chair of the curriculum review committee on the system office task force. And we started having some conversations initially about how do we look at our curriculum, like Quentin said, to address this topic. And one of the first things we recognized was we need more faculty, right? Anytime you talk about curriculum and teaching and learning, that needs to be faculty driven. So we reached out to each institution. We do have a really robust now group of faculty from across the system that are going to be looking at our opportunities for learning, our programs of study in the light of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And so I'm very thankful to those faculty who have stepped up to participate in that group. So, much of our focus obviously will be on our general education and liberal arts programming, because that's where a lot of this conversation and teaching typically happens. But certainly our health sciences and technical programs as well need some highlighting. And, you know, thinking about as students graduate from those programs and enter into the workforce, obviously these conversations don't stop in higher education. These are issues that they need to be well versed on and prepared for when they enter into the workforce. So how are our programs teaching students and preparing them for those conversations, whether it's in welding or in practical nursing or any program like that that's not designed for transfer? You know, what kind of curriculum is available for students in light of this topic? And then here locally at North Shore, some efforts of our faculty recently, we put together a Black History faculty lecture series. So we did have some faculty who came together. It's been really inspiring to see them get together and talk about topics that they teach in the classroom, but to be able to do it in a different format that's open to the college-wide community and then also the communities that we serve, and talking about the civil rights movement and talking about Black history. And, you know, things they already do for a living in the classroom, but then doing that in a different format. So I'm really excited about that series. We had our first event on Monday, and then we have another event coming up on Thursday and a few more this month. So things like that, I really hope also come from the curriculum review subcommittee, and not just talking about what happens in the classroom, but what types of programming can faculty lead outside the classroom as well. So those are some of the things that we have going on with that committee and here at North Shore. Again, Quentin, thank you for the opportunity to lead the subcommittee and to present today.
Absolutely. And then I'll toss it over to Dr. Wainwright.
Thank you, Quentin. I also want to commend our system president and board for their leadership, to you, Quentin, and Dr. Donaldson, and the entire team across our system. It's been exciting to see how we're able to come together holistically and lead off of one another to make this possible. So what Quentin asked me to talk about briefly is, you know, how do we institutionalize the action? Because quite frankly, that has everything to do with the culture of the organization. When people step into the organization and we've institutionalized the action, we pretty much have a thriving platform for future success and growth. So for us at North Shore, the first thing we did was look at our organizational structure. Our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs now serves as our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Diversity and Inclusion. It was important that the work of our task force, which is now a standing committee, lives within our organizational structure. Other examples, we looked at our Office of Disability Services and studied the stigma associated with the word disability. We have now changed our Office of Disability Services and Director of Disability Services to the Office and Director of Accessibility Services. And we've seen some great traction with that. As I mentioned, we've officially now moved our task force to a standing committee. That embeds it within the leadership team and brings ownership to the work and addressing the outcomes and the recommendations. In addition to that, we learned through a lot of our work early on the opportunities and obligations to our offender student population at Rayburn Correctional. We are proud to be a second chance Pell experimental site for LCTCS along with Fletcher. I met with the new warden this week. He's new. I wanted to sit with him as a new warden and make sure he understood where we were in our effort. And then prior to the events of 2020, we had already established the very first goal and objective of our strategic plan when we started working on it in 2018 and 19 was to increase underrepresented student population enrollment in high demand, high wage programs of study. So that really culminated in a platform for success. The final thing I'll close with, and we learned this through the HEADS survey that we conducted, was we can do a lot of work here at the college, but the moments our students, faculty, staff step off the campuses into their communities, they told us through the survey that their discrimination may not have been felt on the campus. It was actually felt in the community. Do we ignore that? Absolutely not. We look holistically at our mission as a college, our community education opportunities, and we build off of that. Two quick examples. We have an issue within nursing, not only at our college, but across the nation when it comes to unconscious bias. But if you look at the curriculum, that is not blended within. Rather than go out on our own and create it, I reached out to our hospital CEOs on the North Shore. They were already addressing this within their own ranks of doctors and nurses. So we have asked our hospital CEOs and their teams to come in. They have already provided training to our faculty and staff. Our next step is to look at some curriculum blending because we are developing their pipeline. Let's address the culture and the understanding early rather than when they get into employment. One of our local corporations on North Shore, NetChecks, reached out to us. they have a specific interest in inclusivity. So they also sponsor our IT interns. So we have their HR director working with our IT interns, specifically in inclusivity. And what does that look like in a corporate environment? So those are just a few examples. There's many more of how we've institutionalized, we've addressed it through embedding within our culture. So much more to be done. So much more to be done. Appreciate the opportunity to share that with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Supervisor McConduit.
Sure. Colleagues, what a tremendous effort this is. And I just have to say, I have been able to participate in the meetings. This is a very engaged group of leaders across the system. You've heard the wonderful outcomes that just in the 6 months that it's been in operation, just really, truly impactful work. Quentin is a stellar leader of this effort. He keeps the ball moving. And when I say that the meetings are very robust, they are, and substantive work is happening. And I want to pick up on something that Dr. Wainwright just left off on. I mean, for those of us in the employer space, right? This is the workforce. This is the pipeline. So the more that we can build a focus on inclusive leadership and inclusive traits and skills, I tell people all the time, you guys know I work in D&I. This is like a muscle. It's not something that you could take one training and just feel like, you're done. You're now, an equity guru. No, this takes work. It takes commitment. It takes institutionalization. It has to be part of the culture of organizations. It has to be built into the fabric, the DNA. And so I appreciate being able to represent the board. I offered and asked to be included in this effort. They graciously agreed to let me, sit in from time to time. And it's just been phenomenal to see the work, to see the commitment, and to see the outcome, and to see that this is something that, is going to be a part of our institutions from now until. And so, Dr. Sullivan, I appreciate you, certainly giving the green light and saying that this is important to the system. To my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, this is important for us, right? This is our role, is to make sure that we are continuing to support these types of efforts that we know will yield the benefits, not just within our colleges, but without, outside, as we heard. And that is so important. We build and uplift communities. We empower citizens to go into the workforce, to have an impact. And so it's more than just what we provide academically. We're building citizens, good, strong, committed citizens. And I think this is so incredibly important for the college to take on, for the system to take on. And I just appreciate being a part of it. So thank you, guys. I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you. Thank you all for the support. For those board members that you may not have seen some of this data, let me give you two examples look, this is courage. It takes courage to surface some of the numbers and some of the data that this group has brought forward. Yesterday, there was the release of a report that outlined the grade production of individual students. These are of students who took courses across a 5-year period. How many students, or what portion of the students, earned a D, F, or W? And then let's disaggregate that and look at it by race. Let's look at it by a whole range of different factors, by content area. It takes courage to do that, because and I know that there's a disparate result for people of color. And it is incumbent upon us to recognize that and to begin to address that issue. A second area, we have started a national discussion. Quentin mentioned in the recommendations, the final recommendation, that Jobs for the Future has started a national discussion with multiple states involved that look at programs of value. And let me give you an idea of what that means. In order to get into a nursing program, a registered nursing program, it is a selective process. In order to get into process technology, it's oftentimes a selective process. And so when you have that selective process and your population as a whole is 50-50, minority, majority, but yet 85 to 90% of the slots go to people of majority, somewhere there's a problem. We have to be willing to acknowledge that, to study it, to understand it, and to address it. And so that national discussion has now led to a multi-state effort where Jobs for the Future is seeking states just like ours to come in and have these discussions together to address this problem so that we are not contributing to the equity gap, but solving the equity gap in this nation. Much of what we saw take place over the summer of this past year was as a result of years of neglect of the equity issue. And if we're going to see the change, we have to be the change. That's what our community and technical colleges are all about. I'm thankful to Quentin certainly for the leadership. Representative Supervisor McConduit. I don't know whether I elevated you or demoted you. I'm not sure which.
Oh, no.
And look, when you see leaders like Will Wainwright picking this thing up and running with it, has been at this work for a long time. Paul, Monica, you guys are just stellar up and coming leaders in this organization. We're proud to have you doing this work, and a whole range of folks on this task force. So appreciative of the work that has gone on. Let me pause and ask if there are any questions from members of the board.
Monty, first, I just want to thank Quentin and Erica and the rest of the task force, Dr. Wainwright and all of those who are working on this. Is an amazing issue. Monty, you touched upon my question. As part of this effort, are we also, or Quentin, is this something the task force is looking at, tying specific and measurable goals to these recommendations? So we'll know if we're making progress toward these things. And if the task force hasn't done that, I would encourage, when something's important to us, we attach goals to it. So I would strongly suggest that that we do that. Monty talked about the grade distribution, and it would be amazing to attach a goal to that, to say at the end of X period, we're going to see an improvement in that and in those grades and those distribution of grades. But thank you all for your work that you're doing on this.
So the short answer is yes, Supervisor. Working with my colleague, Renee Cintron, who's over our institutional research, we're going to get together, and once we figure out in what order we're going to tackle these, because it's a heavy lift, right? What order we're going to tackle them, and then we're going to sit down and put together some measurable goals to it. Yes, sir.
Very good. Other questions? All right. Yes, sir. Supervisor Potts.
Yeah, Quentin, from what I'm hearing is that the outcomes will become positive when we fix the culture on our campuses. Is that the philosophy you're going after? Because changing the culture, and I don't mean to be negative or anything, sometimes that's like turning around a Titanic in the Mississippi River, because there's going to be challenges. So I was just wondering, at what point do these initiatives that we're doing, at what point do we determine whether or not we're successful? And I'm speaking to Chip's point, because it's an excellent point. And I was just wondering, within the committee itself, have y'all gotten that far down the road to determine it was all worth the effort and we're all going to be better off because we decided to take the bull by the horns, so to speak? So
I personally think, regardless of the outcome, it's going to be worth the effort, right? That's just my personal take on it. But okay. I think we can work to achieve both at the same time, because there are pockets of people throughout this organization who want to see this work succeed, right? And on the flip side of that, we have received some resistance, and it's just part of the deal. And so it's my hope that despite the resistance, we're going to continue to forge forward and try to accomplish the work and put those measurable goals in place. And then let's let the chips fall where they're made. But I think if we just stop because of the resistance, or if we stop because the Titanic is too big to be turned into Mississippi, I think we defeat the purpose and we do ourselves a disservice. And so I know that wasn't a specific answer, But I think we just got to keep pushing.
Yeah, I think if I would add just the challenge is, Joe, you're right. I mean, cultural shifts in any organization, regardless of the type, they're difficult and they take time. And so you do have to be committed. And that's why I said it's not a one and done. This is certainly something that has to be woven into the fabric of an organization. And so when you heard Will say something like, you know, you have other hospitals in communities already looking at things like unconscious bias, right? We know everybody has unconscious bias. It's just a fact. And so when you say that's an area where we could see measurable progress, if we did a training for everybody in the organization that just addressed unconscious bias, right? You will see things that will start to shift then. It's those kinds of commitments that over time shift a culture. And
That's
so
true.
there will be incremental measures of success, and there will be long-term, right, measures of success. And I think that both of them will happen simultaneously, and then they're both necessary and will lead to significant wins.
Well, Erica, I'm glad you're on the committee because I know something will get done and positive will get done.
They're doing it. They're doing it irrespective of me. They're doing it. And that's what I really appreciate, is that it's not being driven as a top down. There's great energy across the board. You see leaders like Will, Paul, Monica, across the board it's happening.
Supervisor Potts, if I may, I just got a text from Renee Centron, and I'll share with you the point of the text is this. We have created a public tool that is out on our website that you can take a look at, that we can take a look at, that looks at, I'll use nursing as the example again. What is the population overall, the percent of the population within a given college that is minority majority, and what portion of the nursing enrollees are minority majority? And as Renee points out in his text to me, the goal is to always be within one standard deviation of the total. And right now we are not at any one of our colleges, but that sets a goal out there for us to be able to address. So there's a real hard and fast data set behind this that I think is going to help us to be able to not only to address the issue, which is the core point, but also to be able to help others to understand how to do the same work.
And finally, I think, thank you, Monty. Just touching upon picking up on what something I think Erica mentioned, supporting our chancellors is going to be the utmost. We have chancellors who I think you touched upon in Quentin, who this will be important to them, and not only important, I think it'll be important to all of our chancellors, but some will be better equipped to bring these recommendations forward, will be more engaged. Some will need help, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that they get the resources at the campus level, that each chancellor gets to, because that's where the hard work is. The heavy lifting is done on Will's campus and other campuses. So I know they're going to need that support, and I certainly know they'll have it from the board. Thank you.
I wanted to add a little bit, Monty, if okay. Yeah, I want to thank Quentin and the full committee that's working on this. I mean, I applaud your efforts, and I can feel the passion and just hearing you discuss it. And I think, like a lot of companies, my company's also been spending the last year reflecting on what we saw in the country and where to go next. And I would say, maybe in a bit response to Joe's question, what we do notice is more people are energized. It feels different in terms of wanting to go somewhere different today than any other effort I've seen in 30 years of doing this type of work. So I think while there is, I'm sure, resistance out there, don't underestimate how many people want to use this moment to make our country better, and by proxy, our community college system and across the community. So keep going. I think you'll be blown away around how people will surprise you and are ready to push to a different place. So great work.
Very good. Thank you so much for the comments. I say this to this board regularly, but particularly on this item. Without the strength of this board, this task force cannot do its work. And I want each of you as board members to know how much we appreciate the support that you provide. Supervisor Jackson, you said it as well as I think it could be said. It takes courage and it takes people knowing that the board has our back. And we know that for certain. So thank you for all of the great work. And again, thank you to the task force members. So with that, let's turn to the next item. I want to provide a quick update on the facilities rebuild at Sewella Technical Community College. I'd like, if we can, if Chancellor Aspinwall could join us. I think the board has not heard a full update from Chancellor Aspinwall in some time now, but you will recall that Sewella Technical Community College and a number of our institutions were hit by not one but two hurricanes this past season. The facilities there on the Sewella campus were impacted dramatically. You can remember seeing the pictures, I know, from the presentation that Chancellor Aspinwall made a number of months ago. That rebuild is moving forward very quickly. We do continue every single day to clear hurdles. There are roadblocks in our way from time to time. I want to give a great deal of credit to Chancellor Aspinwall. This is a gentleman that when he walked onto that campus on the 28th day of August, he could have turned around and walked away, and he didn't, because it was in his heart to dig in and to rebuild and to do what needed to be done at Sewella. So with that, Chancellor, I'll turn to you.
Well, good morning, Chairman and President Sullivan and members of the board. Thank you. I tell you, welcome from Southwest Louisiana. Welcome, Willie. I know you're right here with me, and welcome from Sewella Technical Community College. As Dr. Sullivan was saying, our campus is being rebuilt. Just give you a very quick background. It's been divided into 3 phases initially. Now we're into a 4th phase. Phase 1, which is 6 of our buildings that we're currently using, is moving along very quickly. There's a flurry of activity on the campus, and phase 1 is slated to be finished in early April. As you know, our poster child of the hurricane damage was our Arts and Humanities building, and it actually was phase 3, but it has been moved up. And it's currently being deconstructed. As a matter of fact, the governor was on campus about 2 weeks ago, and he told me, he said, "Neil, I saw one of the buildings on your campus, and it really looks rough." And I said, "Yes, Governor, it does." I said, "But that looking rough is actually a positive thing. The building is slowly disappearing because it's being deconstructed, and as we can get it to disappear a little quicker, then it will reappear in its new form. So it will be reconstructed, and believe it or not, if all goes well, it will be totally rebuilt by August of this year." So we do have a phase 2, and I can tell you many people have praised our leader, Dr. Sullivan, and I'm here to say I want to do the same thing, because when we're dealing with this rebuild, it's very frustrating, and very often the bureaucracy seems to creep back in, and one of our phases had some roadblocks. And all I need to do, and I know Monty probably gets tired of me doing this, but I constantly call him and keep him updated, and he always goes to bat. As a matter of fact, I think he just had a very long prayer meeting this morning with some of our leaders. And believe it or not, our phase 2 that had been postponed another week is all of a sudden back on track. We will begin the progress of that this Friday. We'll have our pre-bid meeting, and it will go out for bid. And lo and behold, it also will be finished by July. We have had one of our buildings, our Calcasieu buildings, we're having some problems with the ductwork and the roof, and it was pulled out and put into a phase 4. But I believe it also is on track. So you would be just amazed at the lightning speed of the progress that's going on here. There are workmen everywhere. There's noise everywhere, but that's progress. And our campus, which was devastated, is slowly coming back to life. Last week, we brought our students that could come back, that are in some of our lab programs. They're back on campus. And as I walk around and talk to those, they are so thankful to be here. Many of them like the online environment. Many of them say, "I'm so glad to be back in these classrooms, back in front of my instructors, back around my peers." And believe me, since the storms hit, I've been living on this campus in a ghost town, because not a whole lot is going on, but the life is beginning to come back. The campus is beginning to be reshaped, and there's a lot of progress here. And I can't say enough about Dr. Sullivan, our governor, Commissioner Reed, Facilities Planning and Control, CSRS. Everyone has been on board. Everyone is pushing. And when there's a hiccup, we all come together and have a meeting, and we continue to push. Because I can tell you, Dr. Sullivan is one person who truly understands what a community college is about. And if we don't get these buildings back open, we don't regain our capacity, and we don't regain our ability to earn revenue, it will kill us. So he is working very hard. I'm very proud to work for the LCTCS. I'm very proud to work for you, and I'm very proud to work for Dr. Sullivan, because he's been pushing the whole way, and I wouldn't be anywhere else. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that update, Neil. And I also want to share, and Supervisor Smith, I hope I don't put you too much on the spot here, but you know, it has been at every turn that Supervisor Smith has offered up the support and the help of the LCTCS Facilities Corporation to solve whatever challenges may be out there. And I know that we have far too much experience in this state of dealing with the bureaucracy, particularly on the federal side, that can stand in the way of these projects moving forward. But Supervisor Smith at every turn has made available the resources of the Facilities Corporation. And Supervisor, I would just simply say, I know that offer stands, right?
Yes, it does. I guess I'm on, Sarah, I'm on, but yes, it does, Dr. Sullivan. And quite frankly, Dr. Ashmore, that's a pretty positive report you just gave. I'm fairly pleased to hear that. I'm sitting on pins and needles as we come to this part of the meeting on this report, because I didn't know where you were going to go, but I'm glad it's going well. Okay. But like you said, Dr. Sullivan, make no mistake, whatever we got to do to keep that moving forward using any tools we have, they're available. Okay.
Well, let me just follow up. Stevie, if you had talked to me an hour ago, it would not have been as positive. I can guarantee. But as I said, Dr. Sullivan went to bat again, and he's gotten this phase 2 back on track, because, you know, my whole wish is if we can get these phases bid out and under contract, I can take a sigh of relief, because I know the work will begin. But until we can get them under contract, then again, believe me, when you begin to deal with insurance companies and the bureaucracies, there's always obstacles there. So I just pray that we get this last phase under contract.
That must be why we moved the meeting from 9 to 10, so you could get that good report in. I like that plan.
Yeah.
I will tell you, that is the power of prayer meetings, right, Neil?
Absolutely.
Very good. Any other questions or comments for Neil?
I just want to make the comment again. I'm just so thankful for the governor and for Monty and Neil and Stevie and the whole system, because those 2 hurricanes basically crushed Sewella and many other campuses. And Neil was just like the shining star for me, because he was so focused on, we're going to get this done. We're going to get it done quickly. His motivation, as well as Monty's and Stevie's, all of ours, it's all about the students. You've got to get those students back on campus. I mean, you hear it, you see it, and I'm very optimistic that we're going to do it quicker than we ever dreamed. So thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Willie.
Very good. Thank you, Chancellor. And let's jump into another good news item that it has been in the making now for a number of months, but really got a push this past week. And I'd like, if we can, to ask Chancellor Strickland if she could join us briefly and give some good news. As all of you are aware, we are in the midst of carrying out our Act 360 facility projects. One of those is at Fletcher Technical Community College, and in that project we have a number of an amount of dollars is part of the final phase of Act 360. The college has already met the match. They have met the match with a federal grant, an EDA grant, Economic Development Authority grant, but they had also been pursuing a gift from a local healthcare facility, as well as a statewide healthcare operator, to make an investment in that facility. We just learned this week, and you'll have an opportunity to endorse or approve as a board the CEA that nets $2 million for Fletcher Technical Community College, that is coming from Terrebonne Regional Medical Center, as well as from Ochsner. Our partners at Ochsner have just been tremendous, particularly over the last few months, as you've seen. That $2 million will make a tremendous impact on our ability to be able to carry out that facility and to produce the healthcare workforce for the South Central part of the state. So Chancellor Strickland, I think, is not able to join us at the moment and maybe having some technical difficulties, but I just wanted to share that with you as a good news item. And certainly, Supervisor Smith, I know you've been closely involved in this one all along, so I'll turn to you for a second.
Well, again, it's unfortunate if Chancellor Strickland can't join us, but
We're trying to get her on right now, Dr. Sullivan.
Sure.
Okay. Well, as we're waiting for Chancellor Strickland, I mean, obviously this is a huge boost to our project and really represents a significant investment by these two major healthcare providers in our region. I'm very pleased that this has come together.
Yep. Absolutely. I'll go ahead and move to the next item, and if Chancellor Strickland's able to join us, we'll be sure to jump back to her. I want to wrap up the final item on the President's report. Goes back to the comments that were made by our chair earlier in the chair's report, and that is around the advocacy effort. Each year we have an opportunity to go around the state. We make 12 stops, sometimes 10 to 12, depending upon different logistics, and touch as many legislators as we possibly can with the message of the year. This year's message, as you know, is a rollout of the Foster Promise Initiative. It is as big an ask as we have ever made. If you look back historically, the largest ask that we've made in recent times is in 2013, when we requested what amounts to about $280 million in facilities under Act 360. That was approved and was approved in large numbers in terms of the legislative vote. We have now for the last 3 to 4 years worked to make sure that we develop a proposal for a Foster Promise program that will be effective, that will hit the mark. You've had a chance to see the details of that proposal. We have now made 11 of the 12 stops. Tomorrow we'll be at home at Thibodeau, meeting with the delegation there. In prior years, to hit 50 or 60 legislators was a major accomplishment. This past year, we thought we had just hit it out of the park. We saw 91 legislators this past year. As of Friday, with the 11th of the 12 meetings, we have now seen 98 legislators. We have been face-to-face, nose-to-nose with 98 members of the 144. This coming Thursday, tomorrow, I think Chancellor Strickland will hit a home run. We'll have 100% of the delegation from that part of the world. 7 out of the 7 members will be with us, and some key members as well. Chair of Senate Reverend Fisk, as well as Chair of House Appropriations, as well as the Speaker Pro Tem on the House side. We have made a huge impression on members of the legislature. And in fact, what's interesting to watch is members attend our meetings now later in the sequencing of the meetings, because they've heard from other members that this proposal is out there and they're interested to know more. That's a good thing. There's a buzz around our ask. So excited to get to what looks like about 105 members in total. I have a meeting later today with the speaker to talk through more of the detail on his carrying the bill on the House side. As I've told you before, the president has committed to carrying the bill on the Senate side. We are looking forward to hearing back from the governor on GEARS Act funding that might provide for the seed capital for this effort in the first year. We are also looking to convene a group of members of the Mike Foster administration to bring in people that remember firsthand the work to be done that was done with Governor Foster in creating this system, to really reconvene that group and get them excited and behind both the legislative push as well as the fundraising push. So a lot of great things going on, and could not be more proud of your engagement. When those members of the legislature see you attending either in person or virtually, there's an endorsement that happens there that is exciting. So thank you for your commitment of time to be with us for those advocacy meetings, and look forward to tomorrow's. And I see Chancellor Strickland, and we'll turn to her and ask her to make a few comments about the most recent good news from our friends at Terrebonne Regional as well as Oster.
Yes, thank you so much. President Sullivan, members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you for being with us. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It's that panic that you have when you hear your name and you're trying to get on. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that, so I apologize for that. We are just thrilled about the CEA that you all have today under advisement and review for approval with Ochsner and with Terrebonne General Hospital. We have had a really long, very positive relationship with both organizations, but I believe that this opportunity is really going to take our relationship to the next level. What you have before you is not only a tremendous investment of dollars, which is really, I think, pretty overwhelming for our college. We're just thrilled with that. And it'll enable us to expand one of our new facilities, our Act 360 facility. We'll be adding a nursing wing, which will enable us to not only expand our programs and enroll additional students into those fields, but we also intend to have state-of-the-art hospital simulation lab in there as well. So again, expanding the number of students that we can bring into the program, but also expanding their experiences that they're having during the course of their curriculum. So I did want to mention one other thing, and again, while the dollar amounts are tremendous and we're thrilled with those, I think if you take a moment with the CEA, one of the things you'll see is just a broader commitment and a broader partnership between those organizations and Fletcher. So included in that CEA are things like opportunities for additional clinical rotations for our students, partnership with them on curriculum development and continued curriculum redesign as the profession changes and that we need to move and advance in the future. So, I know my friends at Ochsner would also say that this is beyond bricks and mortar. This agreement is a comprehensive partnership pathway forward for us to engage with advisory, to engage with faculty members and those working in the current clinical settings, just to ensure that our program is state of the art, it's the best out there, and that we also in turn have the facilities to really deliver a high quality education to everyone in the Bayou region. So we're thrilled. Dr. Sullivan, thank you for your continued support and advocacy on this project. Supervisor Smith, you as well. Thank you both so much. And I'll answer any questions if there are any.
Sure. Any questions for Chancellor Strickland? All right. Chancellor, thank you for hanging in there and getting through the technical details, technical difficulties there. All right, if we can, let's turn our attention to the board development segment, and I will ask that we kind of keep this one a bit brief, but I also don't want to move over it too quickly. I think all of you are aware that at the end of calendar year 2020, with the close of that calendar year, we also saw a huge investment by the federal government in education, and particularly in post-secondary education, and particularly in community and technical colleges. I think all of you are aware that that our colleges saw an infusion of dollars through the second round of stimulus that amounted to about $74 million. That $74 million was a godsend at a very, very difficult time. We had just experienced a loss of $5 million in state general fund to begin the fiscal year, an additional $12 million lost in fall enrollment tuition related revenue, as well as about another $7 million from spring related enrollment declines. All of that left us in a place where we were having to have some really hard conversations. As we had these advocacy meetings, legislators asking the question, how are you going to navigate this gap that you have? Thankfully, the $74 million that came in gave us some level of relief. But I think it's important that we have a discussion, as we have had with this board in the past, about priorities, about how we use those dollars to ensure that we sustain the mission longer term. I've asked Joe Marine to give us an update on where we stand in those efforts. And so with that, I'll turn it to Joe.
Good morning, members of the board. As a recap, to provide you some perspective, last year, out of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, referred to as the CARES Act, the LCTCS received roughly $41.2 million, of which half had to be spent on student aid, which it was. This year, with the new updated Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, we are receiving a total of roughly $95 million, of which we have to spend $20.6 million on student aid, which currently is anticipated to be released to students the first week of March. We're working through a process which we used last year, which was a very seamless process, using obviously Elution, the banner student module, to get dollars directly into the pockets of students through their Bank One card, which they all have. Out of that, the remaining, as Dr. Sullivan mentioned, the remaining $74.2 million is to be spent for such things as lost revenues from enrollment declines and others. So as we kind of work through those plans, we will obviously confect them and in consultation with the colleges and the chancellors and their staffs to develop a plan that that provides not only the immediate relief to our institutions for covering expenses related to COVID, but hopefully to provide some more long-term strategic planning as it relates to online delivering, more than likely being a continued effort going forward, and also with regards to our rural campuses to help them with connecting students to our institutions. With that said, Dr. Sullivan, I really have nothing else to provide. I'll be just happy to answer any questions anyone may have, though.
Sure. So I think the only thing that I would add to that, if I may, Joe, is I think it was clear from the board's intent from having conversations with each of you that you see exactly what we see on the horizon, and that is a continuation of a state's difficulties to meet the revenue needs of the state, and particularly of higher education. So the number one priority is to continue to work to grow the reserves of our colleges, to make sure that we have that strong base to operate from. I know that Joe and his colleagues, the CFOs at the colleges, as well as the chancellors, are working to try to continue to make that a priority, but also to sustain those small rural campuses across the state. What the chancellors are working toward is a March 15 timeframe, whereby they would submit an individual report back to the board office as to how those funds will be used. So we look forward to those and know that your priorities are the priorities that are being incorporated within those plans. So any questions of Joe or any of us on the second round of stimulus? All right, hearing none, let's turn back to the chairman, and we'll hit our committee actions.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. That was a great report. Appreciate all the good things that are going on. On point of the chair's privilege, I ask that each committee item, the following committee items, H1 through H7, be taken in succession, and one vote conducted for those items once the review concludes. I call this the Vinnie St. Blanc in globo procedure. Is there any objection to this? Good. Glad to hear that. Supervisor Mount, would you proceed with the academic and student affairs action items, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Academic and student affairs item 1, awarding of degree posthumously to River Parishes Community College student Ridge Melanson in compliance with LCTC policy number 1.037.
Thank you, Supervisor Mount. Good morning, members of the board. I'd like to ask Dr. Amy Cable, who is our Executive Director of Student Services, who's been the one working with the colleges on these matters and has the expertise and background. Dr. Cable?
Good morning, Dr. Sullivan, Supervisor Mount, and members of the board. Under the policy, the LCTCS policy 1.037, LCTCS institutions may award degrees posthumously to students who have completed all graduation requirements, with the exception of participating in the graduation ceremony. In all other cases, board approval is required. Rich Melanson was a student at River Parishes Community College, and he was enrolled in 9 credit hours at the time of his death, and he met all GPA and graduation requirements. So the staff recommends that the board approve to award the degree posthumously to Ridge Melanson. Ridge Melanson was a student at River Parishes Community College. He was a resident of Gramercy and passed away on November 21st, 2020. His passions included sports, fishing, and music. He especially enjoyed baseball, soccer, and football. His radiant smile brought joy to everyone. Mr. Melanson was eligible to receive a technical diploma and an associate of applied science and process technology. And I'll pause for any questions or comments.
Okay, any comments or questions? All right, and again, we're going to vote at the end of all these collectively. So I'll go to item 2 for board approval, retirement of the LCTCS policy number 2.001 and LCTCS policy number 2.002.
Yes, ma'am. So LCTCS policy 2.001 referenced the Military Service Act, and LCTCS policy 2.002 referenced the selective service and immunization documentation. In 2016, we combined this policy into policy 1.004. We created a comprehensive general admissions policy to include all requirements to be admitted into our institutions. So the revision of this policy kind of rendered the other policies obsolete. We went through a series of meetings with the Chief Student Affair Group to discuss this issue, and they approved the retirement of the policies. So our staff recommends that the board approve the retirement of LCTCS policy 2.001 Military Service Act for admission and LCTCS policy 2.002 Selective Service admission and immunization documentation.
Are there any questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Mount. Supervisor Jackson, you have facilities? Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Item 3 under facilities, termination of escrow agreement between Jefferson Parish Economic Development and Port District JEDCO, LCTCS Facilities Corporation, and LCTCS Board of Supervisors.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jackson, Supervisor Jackson, this item is being brought for your action. This is an escrow agreement that we had with JEDCO and the LCTCS Facilities Corporation for $510,000 that was placed into an escrow account during the Act 360 build out of the Delgado River City campus for the construction of an access road to the campus in the event that JEDCO through the Jefferson Parish was not able to receive funding through capital outlay for that build out. Being an annual agreement, we have brought to the board consistently for the last few years a renewal to that escrow or an extension to that escrow while JEDCO continued to work with the state to get that capital outlay appropriation. Thankfully, in 2019, they received a capital outlay appropriation for the planning and the construction of the road. They received funding, at least for the planning part of it, this last summer. And so that normally takes place first before they can request the actual construction dollars. So that being the case, that we felt that we should ask from them and receive, which we did, basically an agreement that the terms of the agreement have been fulfilled, that they have received the appropriation from the state, and therefore they took action, JEDCO took action in late January to dissolve that agreement. It requires our action as the board to dissolve it, and then it will require action by the LCTCS Facilities Corporation in turn. So as such, staff recommends that the board authorize the president to negotiate and execute all documents necessary to terminate the escrow agreement between the LCTCS Board of Supervisors, the LCTCS Facilities Corporation, and Jefferson Parish Economic Development and Port Commission, JEDCO.
Thank you, Joe. You've heard the recommendation. Are there questions?
President Jackson, no question, but I just simply want to point out the teamwork that went on around this one. Supervisor Smith, Supervisor Salat, Supervisor Spears, a number of you have been involved in ensuring that this one was taken care of over the last month or so, and I just want to say thank you. We would not be with this item on the agenda as it is today without your support, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Excuse me. Item 5, cooperative endeavor agreement between the LCTCS Board of Supervisors, LCTCS Facilities Corporation, Fletcher Technical Community College Foundation, Inc., Hospital Services District Number 1 of Terrebonne Parish, DBA, Terrebonne General Medical Center, and Oshner Clinic Foundation, DBA, Oshner Health.
Yes, sir, Supervisor Jackson, and I apologize that the board item and the recommendation is lengthy, but it's lengthy for a reason because it's basically the CEA, as Dr. Strickland mentioned, involves many parties for one purpose, but it's a transaction that affects all of them. Obviously, Ochners and Terrebonne are providing $1 million each flowing into the Fletcher Foundation, who then will hold those dollars to use some of those dollars through the facility corporation for the facility itself, And obviously us, the Board of Supervisors, being party and supervisors over the college itself, are the juridical entity party to that agreement. So as such, staff recommends that the board authorize the president and the chancellor of Fletcher Technical Community College to negotiate and execute a cooperative endeavor agreement and any documents required to satisfy the requirements within the cooperative endeavor agreement between the LCTCS Board of Supervisors on behalf of Fletcher Technical Community College, the LCTCS Facilities Corporation, Fletcher Technical Community College Foundation, Inc., Terrebonne General Medical Center, and Ochsner Health to provide funding and other assistance to enhance the Workforce Development Center currently under development at the Schriever campus. This agreement requires approval of the LCTCS Facilities Corporation.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe, let me just say, I only have to read them. You have to explain it. So, so I'm good.
For $2 million, you can make that thing as long as you want.
That's right. That's right. You've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions? If not, we'll move on to item 5, cooperative endeavor agreement between the LCTCS Board of Supervisors, the LCTCS Facilities Corporation, and the City of Ruston.
Yes, sir. The next item is somewhat similar in scope. The only difference is that this CEA is part of the match requirement for the Ruston project, whereas the other one was not, because it's already been met. In essence, the City of Ruston is providing other improvements, facility improvements, site improvements to the area where the new campus is expected to be built, meeting the requirement match of $1.1 million for the project. And as such, staff recommends that the board authorize the president and the chancellor of Louisiana Delta Community College to negotiate and execute a cooperative endeavor agreement and all documents required within the cooperative endeavor agreement between the LCTCS, the LCTCS Facilities Corporation, and the City of Ruston to provide site improvements to the Louisiana Delta Community College Ruston Campus Act 360 project. This agreement requires the approval of the LCTCS Facilities Corporation.
Thank you. Again, any questions from the board? If not, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think that ends our facilities report. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, sir. That was very, very good. Supervisor Salath, would you present the finance action items for our consideration? Can't hear you, sir. Unmute.
There we go. I got the right button this time. For board approval, revisions to the LCTCS policy 5.017 for policies on foundations. Joe, if you would, please.
Correct. Yes, sir. This item was brought before you, as we do with all policies, at the last meeting for review and advisement, and is being brought to today for action, which is, again, the normal protocol that we follow. Just as a refresher, the foundation LCTCS policy that we have currently over foundations stipulates that all foundations should require a full scope audit. That, however, does not really fall in alignment with what's allowable by state law, and particularly as it relates to the type of reports that are required, financial statements that are required, given, and the audits that occur from those reports, given the financial resources of a foundation. And so what we're proposing is a change in the policy to basically reflect state law in terms of reporting, financial reporting, and financial auditing of foundations. As such, staff recommends the board approve the attached policy 5.017 LCTCS policy on foundations.
You've heard the recommendations. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll go to the second one. Social services contract between Delgado Community College and the Lighthouse for the Blind in New Orleans, Inc.
Yes,
Joe,
sir. Yes, sir. This is an item we have brought, as you all are aware, our colleges are obligated by law to provide services, accessibility services to our students who may need them, be it hearing impaired or visually impaired. This item is an item that Delgado has worked with for years with this company to provide services to its students, and in anticipation of the summer semester coming for the next academic year, they're bringing it forward for action. Staff recommends the board approve a social services contract between Delgado Community College and Lighthouse for the Blind in New Orleans Incorporated, effective July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. This contract is subject to the approval of the Office of State Procurement.
You've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman.
Well, nothing regarding this recommendation. Monty, just a general question. Having switched to online for, so much of our teaching, has that impacted the disability services we have to provide? Or are we still obligated? I'm assuming we're still obligated to provide those services.
Yes, we are still obligated to provide those services, and yes, it has impacted the kinds of services we provide in terms of the online delivery in particular. I think the board is aware of a circumstance, I guess probably 2-3 years ago, that we faced with working with the U.S. Department of Education to make sure that all of our electronic materials, from websites to our learning management system, to our student information system, that it provided all of the same access to those individuals with disabilities in the same way that it is provided for those students without disabilities. So we have been about this work for well beyond the pandemic, but boy, I'm surely glad that we did that work, because it's made the last few months, while not easy, it's been easier. So, great question, and certainly something that we spent a lot of time on over the last few months.
Okay, Stan?
Chairman, that concludes my report.
All right, very good. So that catches us all up on items H1 through H7. At this point, I would recommend that the board approve agenda items H1 through H7.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to note for the record that we did have Supervisor Spahn join us. And so he joined us prior to the start of the item number H1 and will participate in the vote. So we'll take a roll call vote to approve items H1 through H7. Supervisor Price?
Yes.
Supervisor Mount?
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Hardy?
Yes.
Supervisor McConduit?
Yes.
Supervisor Murphy?
Yes.
Supervisor Potts?
Yes.
Supervisor Salah?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Spears? Okay, with note for the record that Supervisor Spears had to exit the meeting prior to this vote. Supervisor Spahn?
Yes.
And that concludes our vote, and the motion on the floor is passed.
Excellent. Good news. Okay, I'd like to now present the consent agenda items for consideration by the board.
Sure, I'll read the recommendation there. Staff recommends the board approve the consent agenda, which consists of items I1 through I3.
I'll seek I need a motion and a second.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Potts, a second Conduit. And we'll do a roll call vote. Supervisor Price?
Yes.
Supervisor Mount? Shaking her head.
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Hardy?
Yes.
Supervisor McConduit?
Yes. I vote.
Supervisor Murphy?
Yes.
Supervisor Potts?
Yes.
Supervisor Salah?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yep.
And Supervisor Spahn.
Yes.
And that motion's passed.
Good. We're getting good at this, aren't we? At this point,
Yes, sir.
yeah. At this point, I want to make reference to the updates as on your agenda and encourage everyone to review the information that is provided. Would like to ask if there is any additional business to come before the board. Okay. Are there any other announcements to come before the board?
Chair Price, I think you have a couple of announcements.
I was just waiting to see if anybody else did. I would like to note that the next board meeting will be March the 10th of 2021. Of course, more details will be sent out via email by Sarah and others. Please make plans to participate in a virtual meeting that day. Hopefully one day we'll get back to real life. I would like to ask all of you to review your biographies on the LCTCS website and ensure that they are up to date. Sarah is more than willing and eager to assist us with that. I've been trying to do it for 3 months and hadn't done it. So I will do my best to make that happen. And I think that's the only announcements I have. I guess the last item of business.
Chair Price, I'd like to note for the record that we received no requests from public comment today.
Good. It's always well. So,
Supervisor, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to point out, and I'm not too much detail here, but Supervisor Mitchell had a family health emergency this morning. I would just ask that you keep her in your prayers. As we all know, from time to time, we deal with family health circumstances, and it's never fun. So just keep her in your prayers.
Thank you, sir. We will do that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move, Helen.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. And second by Ms. McConduit. And the meeting is at 10:47 a.m. Thank you all and have a great day.
Very good. Thank you.
11:47. 11:40.
Good luck with the weather this weekend. Who knows what it's going to do?
Yeah.